What's up, everybody? Just got back from seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, so let's talk about it. To start this off, I just want to give my general thoughts, and all I can say is that this movie is absolutely incredible. They delivered on all the promises that they gave us for this film, and I was smiling the entire time, laughing, clapping, getting emotional in certain scenes. This movie was just everything I had hoped it would be, and more. The next thing I want to talk about was the original idea, that this movie was sold on, and that was the team up between Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. It was just as good as we could have ever thought it would have been. Their chemistry was incredible. They were hilarious. Their back and forth banter was awesome. The couple fight scenes that they have were incredible. The action in general in the movie was great. But just everything with these two characters was off the charts. It was everything we hoped for, and there was nothing I could say bad about the dynamic that they had between these two characters in the film. I was also surprised at how certain aspects of the story, how emotional it made me, especially, between the two characters and the parallels that they put in their character arcs. Obviously we have the history of Deadpool with the first two movies. This Wolverine is a different variant that we haven't spent any time with, but they did a great job with the story, tying together both of their backstories, to make it feel like they're two people that are on a mission together, as reluctantly as they don't want to be. It was a great way to tie the story together, and it was done very effectively. And I already talked about it, the laughs of this movie. This is probably the funniest film in the MCU. I really can't think of one off the top of my head that's funnier than this movie. The fourth wall breaking. I don't want to go into any spoilers, but they mention everything and everyone. I couldn't believe with some of the things that they were saying and doing with the fourth wall breaking and the jokes. I didn't know that the scope was going to be this big on the film, and that was surprising and hilarious, and just made for a great theater experience. The other biggest aspect that this movie was sold on, obviously, was the multiverse. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there are cameos in this film. We all knew that going in. Some of them we knew beforehand, right? But there was definitely a lot of them that we didn't know, and that were huge surprises. Like, the crowd reactions that some of the cameos got were insane. And, one of the great things about the way they use them in the movie is they actually tie them into the plot. And they're not just there. It's not member berries or anything like that. They actually put the cameos and tie them into the plot. So that way it doesn't just feel, soulless or anything. It actually matters to the story. And I thought that was great. Everything about it in the multiverse, this is the best multiverse property or anything since No Way Home that, the MCU has done. And it's really the movie is really what everyone thought Multiverse of Madness was going to be, and it was done so well. And I touched on it before, the action in this movie is top notch. The fight scenes between these two, fight scenes in general, were great. Obviously, rated R movie, so very bloody, very violent. A lot of people thought that with Deadpool coming to the MCU that he was going to get watered down. I didn't feel that at all. This is definitely more in line with those first two Deadpool films, when it comes to the language and the violence, and it was great. Like I said, it was great. The fact that Disney let this movie be what everyone wanted it to be, is so commendable on their behalf, because they could have, pulled the rug out from under us, made a PG-13 movie, done it safe, but they didn't do that. They gave us the movie that we wanted. And then the biggest question too, or at least one of the biggest questions that this film had going into it, was how is this going to affect the legacy of Logan? It was at the time Hugh Jackman's last film as Wolverine. And again, I won't get any spoilers, but they do address it. It is a part of the movie. And I felt like for this film, a Deadpool and Wolverine film, it was handled as perfectly as you can handle it. So that's all I'll say. Like, I won't go into spoilers. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that was I was happy with how they used it in the context of this film, and I don't feel like it tarnishes the legacy of that movie. So for me, it worked perfectly. And to kind of piggyback off of that, this movie, to me, again, it's been solidified in the past, but again, this movie solidifies to me that I don't know who else is ever going to play Wolverine. Hugh Jackman is just perfect for the role. There is a certain emotion and gravitas and just nastiness that he brings to the role. Even in a movie like this that has a million jokes, he still is Wolverine. And it's just like embedded into his DNA at this point. And, if in the future they ever recast him, it's going to be hard for people to accept that version, right? Because Hugh Jackman for 24 years has just delivered time and time again. And this movie was no different. It was just another reminder that he's fantastic, that he's great, and he's almost damn near irreplaceable. So, and the last thing that I want to talk about that was a positive for me, but might not be a positive for everyone, is that there are a lot of references and some of them jokes that are just straight up deep cuts. You will enjoy this movie so much more if you have been watching all of Marvel movies, the Fox ones from the early 2000s. If you've seen them all, this movie is going to be funnier and just hit better if you've seen them all. Now again, for some people, it feels like homework. That might, and if you didn't watch them before, that might feel like a lot to you. But for me, it made it so much more enjoyable, so much more satisfying, and it was a perfect send off for the Fox, era of those movies. And yeah. Obviously I've been praising this movie the entire time, so I am gonna nitpick a little bit just to, give more of a balanced review. The story itself, very simple. Not really all that complex. I didn't mind that. I thought it was perfect for what the movie was trying to do. But if you're looking for a complex plot or a dynamic plot, you're really not going to get that here. This is really about these characters and the journey that they're taking, and it's a very straightforward one. It's not really super complex, so that might be, more of a mixed negative aspect for some other people. It worked for me, but just a fair warning. Another thing is that this movie isn't really going to be too impactful on the rest of the MCU. It was definitely important for these two characters and their worlds, but it wasn't very impactful for the entire MCU, so some people might view that as a negative if they're, thinking this movie is going to lead into the next couple Avengers movies. It doesn't really do that, but it's very good and very personal for these two characters, but it doesn't really tie into the bigger MCU. But yeah, if you guys couldn't tell, I absolutely love this movie. Very few negatives for me. I had a blast. Like I said, I laughed, I cheered, I clapped. I had a great time. I went with a couple of friends, and it was a great theater experience. Probably the best since Spider-Man: No Way Home. So if my recommendation, go see it, get a group of friends, go opening weekend, have a great time. My rating for this is going to be a 4.5 out of 5. Just on my personal level, I absolutely adored this movie, and it was as satisfying as I thought that this movie could be. Alright guys, if you've seen Deadpool and Wolverine, let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'm thinking about doing a spoiler review possibly for it, because it's definitely a movie that warrants that. So let me know if you think I should do that. Alright guys, have a good night.